Hello, everybody. It's me. It's the Nutty Professor, and I have a wriggly child. This seems to have become a tradition. Every podcast begins with a child wriggling. So this child has wriggled. Now, let's see, another child is on the. If I can get the right angle. Another child is on the kitchen counter, which they're not supposed to actually be on. Excuse me, 1 second, I'm going to have to pause this. Where's pause? Now, that child is on the kitchen counter investigating the sink. I can kind of keep an eye on him from there. And then the other one is down here. I'm going to leave him there for now, just so that we can kind of keep an eye on him. Actually, you know what? I should get him down. Okay, 1 second. Another pause. Okay. Children are now on the floor, and I can kind of keep an eye on them. Their nicknames, their real names, I introduced last podcast, Finn and Elsie, but their nicknames are they're known as the Mayhem Twins, and you just saw a little bit of that mayhem. Now, I also a tradition is I start with the mask and then I take it off. Last podcast, actually, I got a little criticism from a friend in another country who saw the podcast, and I think he is he's not a big supporter of masks, and he kind of freaked out a bit. And he goes, "Why are you wearing a mask inside the house with nobody else there except the cats? What are you doing?" And I'm going, "Look, I just start with the mask because I want to remind people that it's a pandemic, and should wear your masks. And I like my mask; it's black, and it matches my mini hat, and it matches my t-shirt. So that's why I start with masks, and I am wearing my Mini Cooper hat today, the one given by relatives. So that's became a little tradition. I start with the wriggling child, and I start with a mask. Now, today's podcast is a special edition podcast. It is 1 year clear of substances. Almost 1 year. Technically, I'm going to be 1 full year clear next week, exactly a week from today. But, because this is a special edition, I've decided to, rather than self-post and rather than to write in the whiteboard and hold up 1 year clear, rather than do it that way, I've asked my former student podcast producer to properly edit. With images and titles on the screen and all of that stuff. So I want to give him at least a week to do that. So that's why I'm taping today. So there's that little window, there's that 1 week, but I'm pretty sure that I can make it. I've made, 49 weeks. I can make the next week, the pull is still there. I've talked about this in previous podcasts. Pull is still there, but the pushes are stronger than the pull, and you just saw two of the pushes that right now they're playing. You can see tails. They're playing on a table over there. So those are the biggest pushes against the pull. The Mayhem Twins. Plus, I have my older cat, Geeta, and she is now, her nickname is the social distancing queen, because she has nothing to do with these people. She's in her room right now, in her closet. She's very big on social distancing. Even when she lies on the bed, if I'm on the bed, she'll be right on the corner. But she's been like that since way before COVID. She's like a big social distancer. These people are not, So, those are my pushes. Plus, I've gone through all the other ones, the added COVID dangers and all of that stuff, I have made it to a year. As I said, there's that 1 week window, but I'm pretty sure we're going to make it. So when you're seeing this, I will be 1 year clear. If I don't make it during the week, I'm not going to post. I'm pretty sure I'm going to make it. Now, that actually raises another point. I've heard some people say, that another way of looking at this whole 1 year and celebration. I've heard some people say that if you celebrate a year or 2 years or whatever of sobriety, of being free of an addiction, you're giving that addiction too much power, or you're giving it too much credence, you're giving it too much strength, you're letting it run your life. But my angle, and so in between, about 4 or 5 months, I did actually go through a little period where I didn't want to count days or weeks or months. And remember, in some podcasts, I go, I'm not gonna give a weeks or days or whatever amount here because I just find that that's too restrictive, and I just want to talk about the issues, and I don't want to go. It's 48 days clear, now it's going to 49. But now I've kind of returned to the months, and so a year I think is well worth celebrating. And in my case, I'm looking at it more as, rather than giving the addiction power, I'm looking at it as celebrating the fact that I've been able to return to the ordinary world for a full year, and I've returned to the ordinary world. In the last podcast, I did mention, Campbell and the whole, return metaphor, and how he talks about Odysseus after, the Trojan Wars. Took him 10 years to return to his ordinary world, and he had to go to the underworld, he had to go to hell and come back, and then all this trials and tribulations, and he was going back mainly for his family, and there were a lot of temptations on the way, including the Lotus Eaters. There were addicts that he met, and some of his men joined them, and he had to get them back and, tie them up and put them back on the ship. So there were all those, temptations and trials, but he made it back, and he made it back mainly for his family. Now, in my case, the family, it's a furry family, and the family expanded during my return. The two babies came to me through my volunteering for a cat shelter, which led to fostering, and the minute I brought them home, there was no question of just fostering and returning them to be adopted into a permanent home. The minute I got them out of the case at home, it was like, they're home. They're my babies, they're Rashid's, So, and then it was, how their older sister, reacts to them, and she's reacted to them by denial, going, there's some kind of furry things in here. Those are not my brothers, but you want to look after them, fine, as long as I get extra treats and I get go in my room whenever I want and I don't have to deal with them. That's maybe I should bring that up when I talk about birth order next. But anyway, the biggest pushes for me, the whole return, the family, and I've talked about that framework. Today I want to add a few things, and I want to thank a bunch of people. I've already been doing this all the way through, but I think it's worth thanking again. The number one person I want to thank. Oh, I'm going to thank the kids, obviously. I mean, the number one are the children in my life, and my Mayhem Twins and the social distancing queen. But in terms of humans, I have thanked this person before many times, but it's worth doing again. My former student, podcast producer, who is editing this. So, and he has been there for me. I would never have been able to do any of the podcasts without him. Plus, he taught me how to do simplified podcasts myself without the editing. And on top of that, he's been there for me. He would send me a text from time to time if he didn't hear from me, going, Prof, how you doing? How many weeks? How many months? What's happening? And I would sometimes reply, going, it's a bit tough. I'm going through, a lot of strong cravings, a lot of pull. And he would be like, go, hang in there, Prof, and we'll do a podcast soon. And it was very encouraging. Now, I've got friends from before that I'm in touch with via email and text. And there's a former colleague of mine who lives nearby. Haven't seen her and her husband because of all of this, they're seniors and, they're quarantined and, so I haven't seen them, of course, but, once a month or so, they get a text from from her, and she's very happy that I'm clear and that I'm making a year. And she's the one who called this my being clear, my getting clear of my addiction. She's the one who called that a silver lining of COVID. And then I've got a couple of new friends, newish. I reconnected with a former student via Facebook, and this is like last March or so, and we hadn't spoken in about 15 years. We lost touch, and she lives in another province, and she's very busy. She's got a family, a multi-species family, and she's got a lot of cats. So it's almost like an informal shelter. Plus, she's got a human husband, she's got human children, she's got human grandchildren, she's got a lot of stuff going on in her life, and she's got some issues of her own. Not addictive. She's not an addictive person, but in spite of all of that, since we've reconnected, she has been very supportive via emails, and she says that she's cheering me on from thousands of kilometers away, and it means a lot to me. So I do want to thank this person very specifically, and the other person who's helped me quite a bit is the shelter coordinator of the cat shelter where I was volunteering, and that was one of the things that I started doing when I really wanted to channel energy, and I'd reach bottom, and I'm like, what do I do? And I came up with this idea of volunteering at a cat shelter, and it turned out to be beneficial because the pandemic had started, and they were looking people to drive cats from clinic to foster homes to adoptive homes, and I love driving. I've got a lot of cars, so there was no problem, and it got me out of the house, and that's how got me into volunteering, into fostering myself, and these two, the Mayhem Twins, have been adopting, and my family has grown, and the most wonderful cat kids in the world. I'll have to go see what they're up to. They might be destroying the apartment, but they're the most wonderful kids. They're affectionate and intelligent and everything. So anyway, but I've sort of become friends with this person, and the shelter coordinator. Now, the interesting thing about that friendship is that I've only actually met her in person once. All the volunteering was arranged via text or email, and I only met her once at an adoption where there was I picked up this cat from a foster home, drove her to the adoptive home, and the shelter coordinator was there to facilitate the adoption, and the new cat parent came out, got the cat from the car, picked up the case, following protocol. I put the case down, step back, person picks up the case, and the cat went into the new home with the new cat parent, and this is the only actual conversation I've had with the shelter coordinator. It was across the hood of my car, of the big car, the Chrysler Pacifica, which I may do a podcast on later. It's a big SUV, and it's now, my coordinator calls it the Catmobile. So we had a 45-minute conversation across the hood of the car, and it's a wide car. It's about 6 feet, so we got to get 6 feet there. So we had our only actual conversation. Now, besides that, she's been we've exchanged a lot of emails, and I've revealed some personal stuff about my own struggles, and she's not addictive herself, but she's been very supportive. And she's the one who suggested happy photo, one paw in front of the other, which I've incorporated into Patap. Now, and I mentioned that because it seems to be a phenomenon. Whenever I go to a Tim Hortons drive-through to get my French vanilla and muffin, I see two people, standing across the hood of a car, and the second car is parked there too. So they've come to meet each other, and they're talking across the hood of the car. They're social distance, and they're using the hood of the car as a big coffee table. And they're putting the coffees and the muffins on the hood of the car, and they're talking. And so they're either friends, following social distance to meet, or relatives, brothers, sisters, whatever, or could even be conducting business. Before there was only one kind of business that was conducted in parking lots. It was like dealing. But these people, this is legitimate business now. It's across the hood of cars. So I'm just like going, that's the only actual contact I've had with that person. Now, but she's been very, very supportive, and I want to thank her. And I'm very glad that she's been there for me. Now, that actually reminds me of another story. Now that I've started this, another story about cat, volunteering, fostering. There was a cat that I drove, and I'm going to change his name because, I've had issues before about people worrying about anonymity, and, cats should also be anonymous, and, he's had a past, but he's got a new life now, and he's a reformed, domesticated indoor cat, but he had been found somewhere in Ontario. He had been found killing chickens in a chicken coop. Unfortunately, I think the farmer, didn't shoot him or anything, but the farmer apprehended him, and he was caught red-handed killing chickens. And I'm not going to give his real name. Let's call him Papaya. So Papaya was apprehended. And fortunately, the farmer called a shelter, and this is the shelter that I volunteer for. It's a very good shelter. And what they did was they brought him to Toronto and they rehabilitated him. He was in a foster home for 6 to 8 weeks, or maybe longer. And I drove him from the clinic to the foster home, where he'd been checked out. And then I drove him to the foster home, and then from the foster home 6 to 8 weeks later, I drove him to his adoptive home. And his adoptive home, the adoptive father came out, protocol, at a distance, got him, took Papaya in, and then later posted, an email, that, this cat has had a past, but now he's a big wuss, and he loves belly rubs, and he, eats canned food, and he's kind of forgotten his cat killer, his chicken killing days, So, when I'm driving him, I'm talking to him and I'm going, hey, Papaya, I hear that you're being reformed now into a domesticated cat. And I go, I'm kind of in that boat. I didn't kill chickens or anything. I ate a lot of wings and bars, but I didn't actually kill chickens. But, I had a bit of a wild past there, it was a bit of a tomcat, a bit of a dumpster rodent weasel cat, So, but I'm going, I'm also, I'm reformed, and I'm like, you ever get cravings? You want to go, raid a chicken coop? You ever go kill a chicken? Because I kind of get the cravings, not for that, but for the strong catnip that I was on, So I'm talking to the cat, But I've heard that so I'm a domesticated cat, But I have good responsibilities. I'm a cat parent, So and the pulls, as I've said, are still there. But, the pushes are stronger. Now, I have in previous podcasts also mentioned, a lot of podcasts I've mentioned Carrie Fisher and William S. Burroughs. And Carrie Fisher was in analysis for many days. One of her jokes was, quote jokes, unquote, was that, any decade now I'm going to have an insight. Well, I've been in analysis with my Jungian analyst for 26 years, and that's another person I do want to thank. I have thanked him before. I'll thank him again, And I do tell him this joke from time to time that Carrie Fisher was going, any decade now, I'm going to have and as you know, she did not make it. She died of a heart attack, but, she was on cocaine and MDMA at the time when they found in her system, and she also struggled with bipolar. So she did not make it to 61. And I talk about how I've been in analysis for 26 years. I've had a lot of insight. The insights are there. The question is incorporating them, implementing them. The whole thing about individuation and, integrating the shadow, and you're going to have insights and dreams, and, and this is like, oh, this is the shadow, and confront the shadow, and integrate the shadow, and this is this, and this is that, and you can have the insights, but, the implementation is a bit hard, but it's happening, And as I said, all the factors converged, came together: the fostering, the volunteering, the COVID dangers, the hitting bottom, and I've made a year. So I do want to thank my analyst as well. So and kind of a last thing here, I have shown my totems. Bast, the cat goddess. Don't worship it or anything. It's just a symbol. It's a powerful thing for me. And I keep it around. The cat goddess. And I have a Buddha candle. Now I have a previous podcast in which I told the Buddha to F off. An earlier podcast. You can see that for yourself. But it's an energy that I don't follow the full path or anything, but it's a symbol. I have this one. I have the laughing Buddha. Now I thought of doing a little ceremony today and maybe lighting. It's a candle I got at a flea market. I thought of maybe just lighting it. I can't find matches. I can't find a lighter. I haven't smoked in 15 years, and too much trouble to go out to find it, So, and the other thing is, if I light it, the Mayhem Twins, I know those two. They're going to come and they're going to burn their whiskers, or they're going to burn the condo down, So, I'm not going to light it. So I'm just going to say, and we'll come back to some of those issues, one part in front of the other, and all of that stuff in future podcasts. But I just want to say it's been very, very tough. And as I say to everyone, and I keep saying it, if you can go 12-step, if you can go clinical, if you've got options, and if you really don't have any options, then you have to do what I did and forge your own path and come up with your own process, And I want to say it can be done. It can be done on my own, except for, analysts and friends, support, and, even from people I don't know very well, like the cat shelter coordinator. But I'm here. I'm at 1 year clear, So I just want to say it can be done, and for those of you struggling, one paw in front of the other. And even though it's been a year for me, it's still pretty much one day at a time, but as long as the pushes, and you've seen two of them, third one is in the closet, as long as the pushes are stronger than the pulls, it's doable, and the support in the analysis and the podcast and the writing and all of that stuff and the COVID helping with the quarantine and the shutdowns and all of that. So I just want to say it can be done, and let's say I don't want to be too ambitious here. It's still one day at a time, and I will be doing my self-posted podcast and there's a car podcast coming up. But the long-term goal now. And I don't want to be overly ambitious, but we've done a year, 1 year at a time. So the next long-term goal is next year, In the meanwhile, one point for the other. Bye for now.